Goyle, they say good energy. Goyle, Yenara, Yedia. Masterclass is also brought to us by First Code Management Services, and they say industry, get it right. Today, indeed, is the 17th day of March in the year 2021. And here at Multimedia, in the month of March, we always do something very special. We celebrate what we call the Ghana Month, here at Multimedia. And in this month, essentially, everything that makes us Ghanaian, right down from our food, our music, our culture, our heritage, our attitudes, the ones we like, the ones we don't like, the ones we can change, the ones we cannot change, and the ones we can work on. All of these things come together to help us to become fully Ghanaian. Some point in the show, when we open the phone lines, we definitely will like to hear from you and find out exactly what it is that resonates with you about being Ghanaian. Perhaps you can tell us the one thing about being Ghanaian that you like, and then we can also go on to the one thing about being Ghanaian that you probably would wish for us to work on or to change. The last couple of weeks, we have been having a conversation on the Africa Free Continental Trade Area, or the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, if you like. And essentially, it's about open markets. It's about opening up the market that we're used to here in Ghana, not just on the internet digitally, but also going up to the rest of Africa. Oftentimes, we have said that it appears to be more difficult to transact business within Africa or within even West Africa alone than it is to transact business with the rest of the world. Why is that? The government of Africa, the African Union, have come together to put together some kind of framework and some kind of schematic to help to make that better. So now when you put together your product and your service, you will be able to reach the markets of the rest of Africa. Regulation has also been amended in this regard to make that possible, to make that easy. In the first set of conversations, we have been talking about introducing the conversation in the first place, what the AfCTA is, and then we talked about being investor ready, we talked about being export ready. We at some point will be looking, probably next week when we get into the conversation, about looking at the strategy for export. So we're looking at our export strategy for the AfCTA. Today, however, we find that in the last couple of days, when the budget for the country of Ghana has been read, all of our conversations in the business arena are centered around the budget. And so obviously, as an entrepreneur, as a business person in Ghana, as someone who wants to be able to sell your products and services, this affects you directly. Even if you're not in the business arena, this is the expenditure and income budget for the country of Ghana. So clearly, even in the area of taxation, you will be affected one way or the other. On the show today, we're going to continue our conversation, but we're going to be dwelling a bit more on the budget. So for those of us who like to take notes, we refer to this as leveraging AfCTA for business growth, the budget edition. The budget edition. Of course, back here in the studio with us, we have a wonderful resource person who has become part of this show and a friend of the show, we like to call him, in the person of Mr. Richmond Kwame Frimpong. Richmond, you're welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
Last week, we took a short detour and we had a conversation with the European Union, who were putting out a kind of program, or should I say aid program, to help businesses in Ghana to grow and to help people to create substance and sustenance for themselves, another program called the CSO Rise. And so we could not have Richmond here with us, but today we're back in the conversation. And we're going to be dwelling on the budget that has just been read, what its implications are for you as a business person in Ghana, and how, if there's a bit of time, it affects the conversation on AfCTA, what to look out for, what to avoid, what the positives are, what the negatives are, or should I say areas of development are, and how you can position yourself properly, if you like, so that you can benefit going forward. Because this is about business, this is about economics. If you just tuned in, this is Masterclass. Richmond, you're welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
The budget edition.
Right.
We couldn't continue this conversation on the AfCTA without taking a look at the budget. In conversation across board in the last couple of days on different fora, people have talked about the budget. I think one of the most popular ones I heard on this station, Joy FM, was the bit about the water and the electricity that we enjoyed. Seemingly coming across now as not being exactly free in the sense of the word free.
Right.
There also seems to be an increase, about 1% increase or a levy on fuel and energy products and all of that. So let's just sort of break it down, not too terse, because people seem to think that the financial text is a bit terse, and sometimes people shy away from it because they don't understand it. But let's sort of break it down and bring it home and help people to understand what has just been read. What's the implication for me as an individual, as a household owner, as a consumer, as a business person, and how do I leverage on all of that in the environment we create for the after? Talk to us, Richmond.
Right. Good afternoon to our listeners and viewers. And so this is just one of the important things if you're a business you should be interested in. Budget reading sometimes, like you said, is captured in economic language, sometimes very high level, such that even people who supposedly are in the industry of finance and business and things like that really do not understand, and they do not connect it to their daily lives, their personal lives. How much more an MSME who is still struggling to put together his books, who is still struggling to do some accounting here and there, to do costing and things like that, to now even interpret high-level economic terms like deficits, like
economies of scale.
Economies of scale. I mean, there's so many things in there, fiscal space and things like that. How really does this connect to the business you are running? And most importantly, how does it affect our understanding of leveraging on the continental free trade area? This is what we are going to be doing. We would first and foremost break down the budget, show you the relevance of the budget to the business you are running, particularly this year, and how you can pick up the salient details in your own terms regarding leverage on the continental free trade area. So just pay attention. Don't be bothered about the difficult language that has been used over the last couple of days on the budget. So first, to look at the budget in this perspective, we'll look at what the budget is, we'll look at the components of the budget, and then we'll look at resource allocation, and then resource distribution in terms of where the government is pulling money and where it is taking money. It is out of these two specific outlets that you, the MSME, you will know the direction of financial effect on your business and how even you can leverage on after.
And even government expenditure, where is government going to spend?
Right.
So that if you're a service provider, you position yourself properly.
Right, right.
Just to remind our viewers and our listeners that we're streaming live on Facebook also. So if you're listening to us, you're in the office, you're parked, you're not moving, and you want to follow us on Facebook, by all means go to our Facebook page on My Joy Online, and then you can follow this conversation. Richmond, let's proceed.
So basically, the budget is just the economic policy of the government. And just like any household or any business, when you are beginning the year, you do a snapshot of how you want to drive your expenses and your income. And that is the same with the budget. Nothing really much. The only difference is that because we are getting into an election year, usually you don't know who is going to win. And so because we did the election last December, the government that is coming in ordinarily will have done the budget for this year sometime in November. But because we didn't know who was going to take over, the laws allow whoever was in power to do a budget in advance of operation, as we call it, just for like 3 months, so that anybody who comes would have the time in the 91 days to prepare and put together an economic policy that will drive what they do. So you notice that before this year, before this budget reading, there was something that was done for the first quarter. And now, since it's the same government that won, then it's even easier for them to put together this policy. And so that is basically the interpretation I want you to have as to what the budget is. It is just like your budget, the income side and then the expense side, that gives you an understanding of what you want to do. Now, there are specific components that should matter to you. These are the two critical components of the budget. There is resource mobilization and there's resource allocation. Nothing really complex. Resource mobilization is simply the kind of funding the government will need to do whatever he needs to do. How is he looking forward to mobilizing the funding he will need to execute same? And then the allocation is when he mobilizes the funds he needs, where is he going to put it? For you, the MSME, when you look at the mobilization side, you are looking at how the government is going to be taxing you or going to go after you to pull something from whatever you make. And then the allocation, where the government is going to be spending the money, so that if you have a business running in that kind of path, you know how to leverage on the funds that will be going into that area. So that is a component, and I'll probably break it down a little bit for you. Now, in terms of the mobilization side, where is the government in this budget looking forward to raising funds? The government is looking forward to raising funds, number one, from tax revenue. I mean, that is very obvious. Number two, looking forward to raise funds from grants. Number three, looking forward to raising funds from what we call non-oil. So anything that has zero to do with oil revenue. And then there is oil itself, what we make when we sell all the oil that we generate here. And then there's ESLA and what we call the NHL. So ultimately, government is looking forward to raising about 73 billion from these sources. However, so that is the resource mobilization. Now, when you go to how he wants to spend this year, which should also be important to you, that is a resource allocation. Strangely for us, we need about 113 billion if we want to execute some of the things the government wants to implement. And so he's looking forward to raising his own revenue of 72 point something, approximately 73. And he's looking forward to spending, in terms of what he wants to accomplish, 113. So from the word go, there is a gap of what he is able to raise himself and what he needs to spend of about 42 billion. Now, that gap is what we call deficit, and he needs to borrow to finance that deficit. And so why is it that he's raising 72 and he needs 113? That is also an explanation I'll give. He needs that because he needs to pay salaries, and we call it compensation in the budget. He needs to run what we call services. He needs to do infrastructure. He needs to pay interest on all the loans he has, which we call the public debts. And then he needs to also give government agencies and the government machinery some advance in terms of funding for it to run. And then there's something we call arrears, like payments that should have gone that is still pending, outstanding. Yeah. And then there's something we call others. And usually in economics, when we say in any finance construct or in any budget construct, when you see others, we don't encourage others, but that is our resource allocation, something like that, and almost anything can go there. Now, for you, the business, be interested in this. In this allocation description I have given, about 90% of the 113, I should say, about 90%, or not, let me say, about 90% of the 74 he wants to raise is going to be paying for two statutory allocations that he needs to do. One is compensation, the salaries, and two is the interest on the debt that the government has. And so technically about 50%, 49.5 something, is used to pay interest. And then about 40 plus is also used to pay compensation, which is salaries and things like that. So that tells you that immediately the government is just left with about 10% to execute on the things he needs to execute. But remember, originally there was a gap of about 40 that he doesn't have, that he needs to borrow to expend. And he has just 10 out of his 72.5 that is left to him after he makes those statutory expenses. So then it means that the government must do something about this, and that is where the difficulty arises, because there's really little the government can do. And so in his bid to make sure that he will be able to do the things he has to do, he needs to borrow. And for you, the business, it is instructive for you to know that the government usually would borrow not from the market that you, the business, you also need funding from. So if the government has to borrow, he has to borrow such that he doesn't crowd you out, because you also need money this year as a business. And the government can go to the same areas you are going to be going for funds to also borrow, because if the government goes to borrow from the same space in the same magnitude, then you will be crowded out, meaning the government is favored to receive that funding more than you, the MSME, because their ability to pay security, among other things, is high. And so then if the government concentrates on just domestic borrowing, then he's likely to crowd you out and you'll be hot. And that is why you notice that usually the external debt side of his borrowing anchor is usually more. Why? Because he will have to do euro bonds, he has to do a number of other things so that you can have the chance to borrow in the space where you need funding to do the things you do. So in a nutshell, that is the basic snapshot of how our budget is like. And for you, the business, you should now immediately know that the government would have to raise that money through the channels I said. And in doing that this year, one of the things the government mentions that he's going to be doing is to introduce a number of taxes. And in introducing those taxes, he does something very instructive, and he calls them reliefs. Most importantly, the reliefs are for businesses that are in the category of the MSMEs. Already there had been stimulus packages that were made available. Now, in order to cushion the businesses in the MSME sector, he is making available some reliefs in terms of tax rebates and even tax stamps. He not taking the quarterly payments in terms of if you are selling something or if you are doing a service and you need to account on a particular tax quarterly. He's saying that no, he doesn't need you to do that. You can keep it so that it becomes another avenue of raising funds for yourself. Now, immediately, the specific areas where the tax is what you must take notice of, so that because it is going to reflect on your cost of production and it's likely not to make your pricing competitive enough, you will know what to do, slapping the reliefs the government has given you against the taxes that are coming in to increase your cost of production. So in the banking sector, there is a levy he has initiated called the Financial Services, I think, levy, and it's going to be taxing about 5% of their profits. Now, this is not profit after tax, so this is profit before they tax it, and so you have to pay that amount, and it's going to be slapping across board. Now, I have said on a number of platforms that it is going to have an implication on everybody, including the businesses. Why? Because I've been in the financial service sector for well over 15 years to know that banks are particular and sensitive about their bottom lines. Well, it is possible they may not, but as long as it is industry-wide, be prepared and don't be surprised if the banks find a very intelligent way of passing this cost to you, the customer. And it can be in any way, it can be in any form. Even though they are paying it before tax. I mean, there's a scenario. He's making a profit before tax of 1 cedi, and he before this period he was paying maybe an after tax, and it's left at maybe 50 pesos. Now with this introduction, the bank is interested in at least keeping the same profit margins and at the same time exciting their shareholders. So if he has to absorb this, then he still needs to find a way of still achieving at least the same kind of profit margins. And so for you have to be looking out for how you dodge or you escape that consequence. And the government is saying that he needs to do that so that he would share the burden of responsibility in the financial services sector, and the banks can be stronger and they can help you to execute big ticket items. Remember, we are talking about export strategy, and we are saying that export financing is one of the critical gaps and one of the things that will help everybody even to leverage on AfCTA. And so if the banks do not have the muscle and the right environment and temperature to be able to finance you the MSME at very low cost, so you have access to good credit, you can't compete with another maybe MSME in another country who is probably getting a cost to credit of close to zero. And so that is the government's approach to making sure that you benefit from that sector. The next thing that is instructive for you to also know is the tax on fuel. Already, I think for the last couple of weeks, if you have noticed, the fuel has been taking a spike in the deregulation environment. And analysts are even saying that has been about 17% or so. Now, with this new addition that is going to sit through the ESLA, it means that you are going to pay a little bit more on fuel. And for the MSME, its implication will be on your cost of production. So now you have to be very careful and very efficient at how you manage transport and things like that, because transport is such that the demand for fuel is inelastic. It simply means that there is no way you can say you can dodge that kind of tax, because you will use some form of transportation. If you will not use it, the space of moving your goods or services raw materials or finished product from one point to another will definitely be caught up by that way. And so it is likely to show up on the final pricing. And so what do? You would have to now prepare and know that that side of the tax is going to also affect you in terms of your pricing. And so when you look at that tax, in addition to the VAT, there is another thing on VAT, and you look at pollution,
tax on VAT.
Pollution, and I think they call it BOLA in quotes. And so pollution and I think sanitation. Excellent.
Yes,
so sanitation and pollution. There is another tax on it just to make sure that the cost of making sure our cities and our towns are clean also doesn't become a burden. Landfill sites and all those things associated with it. And even with the vaccination. With the vaccination, it comes with a number of pollution, it comes with a number of sanitation problems. And in resolving that, the government wants it shared. Now, this is why the government is saying that having an appetite to make sure that the economy is in the right footing so that anybody can enjoy, he would want to do this in the face of the coronavirus pandemic and introduce what he calls the Obatampa Cares Program. And in the Obatampa Cares Program, he is now going to give specialized support. And that support is what you, the individual, you can leverage on so that you can become better. So first and foremost, this is what the budget is. The resource mobilization is the areas I've explained as to where the government is raising money. And for you, the MSME, you take notice of where that is coming from, the tax component that I've shared, so that in your business, you know that there are some adjustments you need to make. Then, in the same vein, the reliefs that you are going to make, particularly if you are even in the tourism, the education, hotel, among other things, you would even have another rebate system where you up to about 30%, you don't need to pay your taxes. And so that is another good thing for you. The only downside is that is after you have run your business and you have made some income. But remember, originally, if I don't have any income to drive the business, and government is saying that I need to not pay tax after I make profit, you don't have money to first go into doing the business. So where do you even get the income or the revenue to now say that you are not going to pay tax? This is the basic picture of the budget today. And with the Obatampa Cares Program, I'm going to be showing you what your eyes should be on so that you can leverage on your export strategy in these times. So number one, I've explained the budget. Number two, I've shown you the main components of the budget. Number three, I've shown you where government is raising revenue from, where he's going to be spending. And then we are now going to go into the government's trump card for you through AfCTA with the Obatampa Cares Program.
Right. And before we go into those details, to remind you that Masterclass today is brought to us by GOIL. GOIL, they say good energy. GOIL, Yanara, Yedia. And also First Code Management Services. They say industry, get it right. And so in these moments of increasing uncertainties, firms are compelled to seek tailor-made solutions to reduce risk and to grow their businesses. For startup investors, SMEs, and business owners, First Code Management Services provides advisory and facilitation support for company formation and business setup, corporate secretarial and business compliance, accounting, research and market entry, training and capacity building, I beg your pardon. First Code Management Services are your first point of call for all your management support services. Talk to them today and call them on 0302 297 2263 or 0302 297 2264. Locate us at 60A Westlands Boulevard, West Legon, or visit us at www.firstcodelimited.com. Industry, they say, get it right. We want to get interactive so that while we wait for the phone lines, you can also then try and explain the Obatampa conversation to us. So we want to open the phone lines, but we'll take a quick message from our sponsors, and then when we come back, we'll go straight to the phone lines.
Your favorite on-air business development program, Joy Business Masterclass, is in session, and you can interact with us on Facebook, via the Joy 99.7 FM or Joy Business pages. If you tweet, the handle is at Joy 997 FM or at Joy Business GH. Don't forget to hashtag JB Masterclass. You can also call us on 0302 216541 or send your questions and contributions through to the WhatsApp number 0551 111997, and our facilitators will address your concerns. Attention everyone, class is in progress.
Welcome back. If you've just tuned in, this is Masterclass. Going cashless has never been this convenient and exciting. GOIL's e-payment systems are now compatible with GH Link, the national payment platform. Now, you can use your GH Link card on GOIL's POS machines to purchase fuel. GH Link cards offers additional payment options for fuel purchases at all GOIL stations in addition to the Go card. Every fuel purchased is recorded automatically on your bank statements, helping cardholders track and manage their expenses. So go ahead and use your GH Link card to buy fuel and all lubricants from any of GOIL's over 400 stations across Ghana. Go cashless and protect yourself and stick to all the COVID-19 protocols in these times. GOIL, they say good energy. GOIL, Yenara, Yedia. Richmond, I think what I'm going to do very quickly is that we've got a bit more time, so let's go into that conversation on the Obatampa for a few minutes, and then we open the phone line so that our listeners can join us.
Right.
Yes.
So now, the coronavirus has brought a lot of what we call contraction, and I think I don't need to explain it. In simple terms, our GDP, our economic productive abilities and minds, in sum, is what we capture as GDP, the gross domestic product, and it was growing at about an average of 6.8. Now, if you want to understand why the Obatampa, it is what has happened to our GDP in contraction terms. And we are saying that now from 6.8% growth, it is now down to 0.9. Actually, some were even predicting it was going to be less. Originally, we were looking at it coming from 6.8 to 1.5. Now it's at 0.9. That should tell you that the strength of the economy has shrunk almost 6 times southward. And so the Obatampa Cares program is like a recovery and a revitalization program that the government wants to do so that he can more or less inject some activity and some buoyancy into the economy. Now remember, Ghana's economic construct is more micro, small, medium enterprises. And so this contraction affects largely the informal sector. Same way the revitalization with the Obatampa Cares program is also going to be affecting the informal sector. Now, what is this goal of Obatampa? This goal of Obatampa is a medium-term program that is meant to revive the economy and take it to the places of a little over 6.8 growth or more so that businesses can revitalize again. And the government is doing it from approximately maybe between now and 2024. What are the specific things they want to do? It says it wants to build a wealthy, inclusive, sustainable, empowered, and resilient economy. A wiser economy. A wealthy and inclusive, sustainable, empowered, and resilient economy. And all they want to do is to pick specific sectors that are going to do that. So listen if your sector is in any of these categories. Number one, the critical focus is on manufacturing. So if your MSME business is in anything manufacturing, you are in the line of execution to be assisted. Number two, they are looking at agriculture. So anything you do also that falls in this category of agriculture, you are going to receive that kind of support and stimuli and guidance and drive. The next thing is ICT. So if your business is also in the ICT area, again, it is also going to affect you. And then they say leveraging on the AfCTA agreement. So this is like the trump card in terms of strategy to say that between now and maybe then 2024, 2025, anything that falls within this kind of category, we are going to give it a special attention and drive it in that sense. So then it means that if they are going to be leveraging on the AfCTA agreement, then all the things we have discussed and learned about the Continental Free Trade Area, you should be putting it into use and into practice in your business. Why? Because the Obatampa Cares program is going to support people who are AfCTA ready also. And particularly because of the positioning of Ghana, and even with the direction of this budget kickstarting the Opatampa this year, you cannot just whirl away and wish away all the things we have learned on the AfCTA. So number one, I'm saying agriculture, manufacturing, ICT, and then leveraging on the AfCTA agreement. So it says industrial development, including the establishment of vehicle assembly plants, diversified productivity and value high services. So if you are also doing anything that is service oriented, anything that is not tangible goods, but it is service you are rendering, and you have been able to put into place some of the things we discussed earlier on in terms of order, in terms of structure, in terms of formalization and things like that, then you can equally also leverage on the AfCTA platform, because your Batamba is going to support you. Now, in doing that, the government is going to be establishing what we call the Development Bank of Ghana. And the Development Bank of Ghana is purely going to be interested in pushing businesses and industries to expand and to thrive. So it's like a development bank. And that development bank, I think maybe this year, later this year, will be up and running. And so here again, for you to be able to leverage on that drive, you should be AfCTA ready. And AfCTA ready means all the things we have discussed. Your export readiness, your export competitiveness, your appreciation of putting your books in order and doing the things you have to do as an MSME, so that if you want to leverage on any AfCTA platform, you can go through the development bank, for example, to access credit, because then the development bank will not be interested in just making profit necessarily. It will be interested in developing enterprises through the Obatampa Cares program. And so if you are ready, AfCTA ready, then indirectly you are going to be qualifying through the development bank to get all the things they require and they need of you to get things done. Then if you are able to do that, then you can qualify for any of the supports that will come your way. And remember that whilst doing all these things, it is targeted at making sure that every individual who is able to prepare himself for the AfCTA readiness will now be able to expand his ability to export and get more demand for his goods and services. That is why I'm saying that you cannot be an MSME and not take this AfCTA thing serious, because the budget is showing policy that is driving everybody towards a point where we can only support anybody who complies or who is AfCTA ready. And AfCTA ready simply means the thing that will make you pass to trade beyond Ghana. That same thing will make you pass to access funding that is cheap, so that you become competitive. Because if you get that funding through, say, the development bank, and you are able to produce, your goods and the services you are producing is probably more competitive in terms of pricing, because then the cost of producing it will not be much compared to the cost of the credit you assess. And that makes your good competitive to another good that is coming from another country that is going to compete you in terms of sales and things like that. And so if you are listening to us, this is the economic policy of government. This is the direction the government is going. It is true that the government has introduced taxes, but on the other side, the government is also giving reliefs. And that relief is supposed to technically net off the consequences of the taxes that is coming. And if you are able to do that, then for this year, if you can go all out and get all your revenues done properly with proper accounting, you are not going to be paying any tax. If you even fall within education, you fall within hotel, you fall within tourism and any of those industries, you have up to about 30% rebates. If you're a taxi driver, you are in the transport, if you are in trotro, for you, the vehicle income tax will not even apply. So then, even if there is going to be some cost coming from the ESLA and maybe fuel and tolls, there's going to be some increase. But even if it's going to come, the effect of those increases and the revenues you make that you are not going to pay tax, we'll take care of it. So that means that from the word go, if you can go all out and drive and execute and get more income,
You take advantage of this.
You take advantage of it, because it is not going to be forever. It is not going to be forever. So then you leverage on it. Another good thing is that through this Obatamba thing is that for MSMEs who would want to now raise funds that are cheaper, and those funds may not necessarily have to be credit funds, but you want to raise funds from the capital market. Here, the capital market meaning you want to maybe list on the stock exchange. So let me break it down. You are running maybe a business and you need about 10 cedis to inject into your production. Ordinarily, you will go for debt or equity. Debt is when you say the bank should give me something at a cost. And equity is say, okay, I own this business and the value is 10 cedis. I would want to give out maybe 5 cedis to 10 people who can give me that 10 cedis. These are two different sources of income that can come into the organization. We have explained through the budget policy and the Obatampa policy the credit side of this. Now, the equity side of this is that between now and up to 2024, and it could even become permanent, if you go and raise that outstanding fund through the stock exchange, which is the capital market, and people now come to put in the money you are looking for, then you are now ceding a portion of your ownership in terms of value to other people, and they will give you that money. Now, when that happens, the people who invested, they make what we call capital gains. And the capital gains is simply, I buy the share at 1 cedi. The next moment it trades, the business does well and everything, and it ends the year maybe at 2 cedis. Now, because I bought it at 1 cedi and it ended the year at 2 cedis, the difference I make if I sell is 1 cedi. And so that is some gain you make. Now, with this program, you are not going to be taxed. Ordinarily, you are taxed on that because it's some income, but you are not going to be taxed. And that means that you make additional income, and that makes it exciting for investors to part away their money as long as your business is showing the right fundamentals. So if you want to leverage on it again with this direction and policy, you should be even getting yourself ready to qualify for fundraising in the capital markets. That is why you can't run your business the same way you are running. That is why you can't take things for granted the same way you are doing. That is why you cannot say you are not interested in the budget. You cannot say you are not interested in the after conversation. Why? Because when you are interested, you align yourself, your operations and the things you do to become after and even this budget policy compliant. And the moment it does, your access to either credit through the policy I've shared, the development bank, the bank strengthening, and the charges that is going to the bank to make them very good and very strong so that they can lend off to you, among other things, now will give you access to credit. That will make your cost of producing either a good or service even cheaper, and your prices of goods and services become competitive to now sell beyond Ghana.
Let me do this quickly. Let me open the phone lines. There's so much information coming through. If you're listening to us, this is Masterclass coming to you live on your superstation Joy 99.7. Numbers to call 0302-216-541. That's 0302-216-541. You can also send us your comments on 055-1111-997. That's 055-1111-997. Give us a call on 0302-216-541. Phone lines are now open. We're interactive. We're having that conversation on the budget edition and how it affects you as a business owner, your preparedness, also for the AfCTA, leveraging on the budget. And our host here, I guess I better beg your pardon, is just sharing with us the areas to look out for. And he just pointed out that if we take advantage of the positive side and the opportunities that exist in this budget period, then net, we're going to be much better off and we're not going to lose out. Richard, let's continue.
Right. So these are two things you need to take advantage of. The last thing that is also going to come out of the Obatampa, and they say clearly here, is that they are going to just create a specific hub that will support entrepreneurship. So they say, provide a supportive private sector environment for entrepreneurship, domestic businesses, and FDI to thrive. Yesterday, I was in a meeting, with the GIPC and some embassy heads. And this was in the Scandinavian region. And when you listen to them, they give you specific areas they are ready, investor ready to put money in there. Again, with the government drive, if you are able to leverage on this budget openings and able to leverage on the conversation and the things we have shared on the AfCTA again, then you notice that you have access to cheap credits. That is one, either through the development bank or through the bank strengthening. Or you have access to capital funding, which is through the capital market, listing on the exchange. And here, when you want to list on the exchange, there is a process you go through. And I'm not even talking about the first tier exchange listed on the Ghana Stock Exchange itself. There's an alternative exchange, which we call the GAX, the Ghana Alternative Exchange, which is for small enterprises and businesses that cannot compete with the high street organization. And they nurture you there so that you can come up and raise and become profitable to go to the next one. Now, the third thing through this is that even FDIs are going to come to you. So then with AfCTA, everybody is looking for the safe place, one, and the cheapest place where I can put my manufacturing hub, where I can put my investment into this business so that I can produce and get access to a market that I didn't have. And so the FDIs are now going to come to your direction so you can make credits, you can make capital market operation funds, and then you can make FDIs. So then it's almost like if you are any of these things compliant, then access to funds doesn't become difficult. And that is where the revolutionary drive comes to the MSMEs. That is where, if you are well prepared and well positioned, you don't wait till the end of the year. You get yourself ready. And so when the government expenses begin to kick in the areas we have explained, then you are in line to receive same. You are in line to receive same. Why? Because those things have been done for you. Then the last part is digitization, or maybe they call digitalization, when it is a comprehensive one. Digitization is just a small sect of same. Now, one thing that is happening is that effective immediately, two critical things. We were using just SNIT to capture the number of people that were employed. And approximately we are having just about 1.7, 1.5, 1.7 on the tier 1. Meaning that out of the over 40 million people that are working officially, it's just 1.5 that we know technically who are paying SNIT tier 1. And to be paying tier 1 means that is a recognizable number. Now, with the national identification card, which is seamlessly supposed to make it possible for us to identify the number of people who are in the country. Remember, in the run-up to the Coronavirus Alleviation Fund, the government, in his bid to give stimulus, advised all MSMEs that were interested to quickly register with the GRA and get their tax identification numbers.
Yes.
Now, that brought in about 800,000 people. And it was not just for the purposes of tax necessarily. It is so that we can identify MSMEs that can be in line to receive support. And immediately from the 1.5 on SNITs, and there are about 800,000 that registered with the tax identification. Now, because the NIA is having 15 million people registered, the government is saying he's in his digitalization agenda, he's converting the 15 million all into tax identification numbers.
Right.
So immediately, if you have your national ID card, practically everybody who has a tax identification number. And it is able to give government data to know which category of businesses fall under manufacturing, which category of business fall under services, which category fall under ICT, so that if they, for example, have to help you, they know how to help you. And
this would require some kind of reconciliation with the GRD. I mean, with the RGDs.
Yes.
Because not all those companies which went through that process are still active.
As in those who did the tin registration.
Precisely.
That would be strange because this was just November last year. So if November
Anyways,
last year,
yeah, but
did it to receive.
But there's work to be done, essentially. There's work to be done.
So
go ahead, please.
So again, that should tell you that you should be coming compliant even with this digitalization agenda for you to be ready to receive support. And if you have done all these four things and you are running according to script, then I think this is going to be a good year for you as an MSME. And you can be not just after ready, but you can become investor ready to receive help.
We've got just a few more minutes. Let me just throw this in. How is this going to affect rates on investments, fixed deposits? What's the expectation? If I have a bit of money I want to put into fixed deposits, the government is looking for money, there's a budget deficit.
Right.
Is it going to embark on an open market operation?
That is a good question. So, again, listen to me carefully. Because the deficit is quite huge and the government will need borrowing to fund it, it means the appetite to raise that money will be high. And anytime the demand for that amount is high, it means government would have to borrow. And one of the ways government borrow is through these fixed income instruments. If we say treasury bill is simply a lending, a debt instrument. So when you buy treasury bill, you have given your money to government over a period, and the government promises you a return. And so that is one of the ways you can also be looking out to put in your funds that you probably don't need immediately. Instead of getting it stuck in a regular account, you can be looking forward to buying treasury bills.
Super. Okay, and let me just try and see if I can Okay. When you say the government is going to be taxing the banks on tax before,
Profit.
profit before tax, will the government not end up taking from itself? Because if you are billing me tax profit before tax, it means that your margin on tax that's due the government after that amount is taken off, it's also going to drop. So is the government not taking from itself?
I don't think so. Okay, profit after tax, maybe it's bringing me 1 cedi. But before, remember, profit after tax usually reduces in a bit. But I'm now giving a ceiling of 5%. That will give me in advance. Sometimes, like in advance of operation, it's like I'm doing the toll. The toll now, if I say I've increased the toll, as the government has said, I will have to get the money at the end of the month or at the end of the year. But the moment I don't even increase and I automate it, beginning the year, you just buy your toll ticket and it's with me. The money is with me.
Right.
So the moment we notice your profit, give me the 5% out of it. And then after that, we can do the taxing.
So many questions here. This has been an exciting conversation. The budget edition here on Masterclass. We will definitely continue that conversation next week. We'll be spending good time here with Richmond, who has been sharing some thoughts with us. Next week, we'll continue with that conversation. Obviously, we'll be talking about the export strategy for the After Masterclass today. It has been brought to us by Goyle. Goyle, they say good energy, Goyle, Yanara area. And also by First Code Management Services. They say industry, get it right. My name is Yaw Anim Barnafo. This has been Masterclass. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you same time next week.